The New York Islanders have a decision to make this offseason on Noah Dobson. Plus, what would it take to add a sniper to this team? All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could send us an email. LockedOnIslanders@gmail.com is the email address. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we discuss what's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We're going to keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it is great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. One thing that's going to happen this offseason as of July 1st, that is when the Islanders can sign defenseman Noah Dobson to a contract extension. And Dobber is entering the last year of his deal in the upcoming season. And look, the Islanders signed Dobson to a bridge deal. He is earning $4 million this coming year, and he will be a restricted free agent after the 2024-2025 season, but he will have arbitration rights. And, the thing about Dobson is that you have to figure out whether it is wise to sign him sooner or to sign him later. Obviously, this offseason, there are advantages to locking him up. There are disadvantages. Let's break a few things down. As a player, right now, Dobson had a career high 60 assists, 70 points. He was a plus 12 on a team that didn't always have a lot of plus players. That is the greatest offensive season by any Islanders blue liner not named Denis Potvin, just from sheer numbers. And yet, here is Noah Dobson. He is 24 years old, won't turn 25 until January. He is now entering the prime of his career, and we know, this was a breakout season. He may not match the 70 points that he, accumulated this year. And clearly, Dobber lost a little juice late in the season, whether he was injured or just physically and mentally exhausted, because at times when there were injuries on the blue line, he went through a 2 or 3 week period where he was playing 26, 28, 30 minutes a game. And I think it did indeed take a toll on him. But Dobson is the only, I'm not going to say the only puck-moving defenseman on the team, but by far the best puck-moving defenseman on the team. Mike Riley can move the puck pretty well, but he is not in the same league at this stage in his career as Noah Dobson. And Dobson, to his credit, blocked a lot of shots, led the team with 180 blocked shots. If I, asked you really fast, who led the Islanders in blocked shots, I don't think a lot of people would have said, oh, yeah, first guess, Noah Dobson. Also had 84 hits. That is a career high. So a little more than a hit a game. And 24 minutes, 31 seconds of ice time. Clearly, he is head and shoulders above any other defenseman on the Islanders roster offensively. If you sign Noah Dobson to a long-term extension this summer, after July 1st, the advantage is, let's face it, the salary cap is going up. The salaries always follow. If you wait another year, it will cost you more money to sign Noah Dobson to an extension. And if he has another good season or takes another step forward offensively, that price tag could go even higher. But there are some problems with the Dobson situation. And I think the problems are not outweighed by the benefits, but let's discuss the problems. Number one, Noah Dobson is still not a very good defensive player. He has gotten a little bit better. I think, he has showed signs of being a little smarter in the defensive zone, but he is not a good defensive defenseman. But again, when you're scoring 70 points in 79 games, you can overlook that to a large extent. He still does have difficulty clearing his own zone, as do a lot of Islanders players. He's not alone in that respect. And Dobson is also, while he did score one goal and had 23 assists on the power play, he is not a great power play quarterback. He is not the kind of player who really knows how to maneuver the puck and control a power play where, he sets everything up and makes things happen. He does have good passing ability. He does have good skills. But as a power play quarterback, his hockey IQ may not be as high as a power play quarterback as you would like it to be. And that's an issue. There's no way around that. The fact that his play fell off late in the season is a little bit of a concern, but not a big one. The other factor is this, and I think it matters, and I think Islander fans will appreciate what I'm about to say. There's something about incentive. There is something about a player who is playing in his contract year that makes that player play better, because he knows that if he has a good season, there'll be a direct impact on his bottom line, that he'll make more money, that he will get more opportunities, whether it's, in Dobson's case, whether it's the Islanders signing him or whether he has to go to arbitration, he'll get a higher arbitration award if he has a good season, or if he's, traded or let go and signs somewhere else. Eventually, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. The better he plays in that contract year, the better the contract he's going to get. So the opposite of that, the flip side, is what we've seen too many Islanders players have as an issue. And that is, oh yeah, you could sign a guy to a long-term contract, and the Islanders are going to want to line up Dobson for a long-term contract, but that takes away the incentive. How many players have the Islanders seen where you sign them to that long-term deal and the production kind of falls off because the contract is guaranteed and the player knows over the next 6, 7, 8 years, no matter what, I'm getting my $7, $8, $9 million a year. And, whether I stink or I'm great, I'm getting paid in the next 8 years. I'm making $65 million. This is sort of the disincentive that players who sign long-term contracts have. And I think the Islanders might be wise to maybe wait until, let's say, November or December of this year, the end of the year, a couple of months into the season, see where Dobson is at. It's soon enough that it won't, like, if he plays well, it won't really jack up the price. But if he plays poorly, it gives you more reasons for hesitation. I just think rushing into a long-term deal is not necessarily the best way to get a great season out of Noah Dobson or any other player. Give him the incentive to play well to earn that contract. And I think it's a win-win for both player and team. If you wait the whole year, again, the price probably goes up. You want to avoid that. But I may not want to get it done right away this summer just because of the lack of incentive that creates. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk a little bit about what it would take to add a sniper to this Islanders lineup, because we all know that's one of the things the team needs. Oh, and our Islanders birthday of the day, a former first-round pick of the Islanders, a defenseman who is still active in the league and played with the Islanders in the early 2000 teens to late 2000 teens. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click on the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we all know this team needs a goal scorer, or preferably probably two. But it isn't going to be so easy to add that goal scorer. And, one player that has been mentioned as being possibly available as, as an unrestricted, rather available via trade is Mitch Marner. And the question becomes, what would it take to get a guy like Mitch Marner? Well, I'm going to explain to you why it won't be easy and why it's probably not going to happen, and why the reason for that mostly rests on Lou Lamoriello. Let's start with this. Mitch Marner has a no-trade clause, so he would have to waive it and agree to be traded to the New York Islanders. So that's first. And Marner has already said he really likes being a Maple Leaf, likes playing in Toronto. Then you go to this, the cap hit for Mitch Marner. Let's even say you cleared that hurdle, and there's nothing that says you will clear that hurdle, because A, he may not agree to waive the no-trade clause, and B, if he does waive the no-trade clause, the Islanders may not be on his list of teams that he's willing to waive it for. But if you get past that hurdle, you then have the next problem. Mitch Marner has a cap hit of $10.93 million. So let's be honest and reasonable, and let's round that up. You need to free up $11 million in cap space. Right now, the Islanders have a little more than 6.3 million in cap space. So you have to free up 5 million in cap space just to acquire Marner. And that does not include re-signing Kyle McLean, possibly Mike Riley. You have to re-sign Simon Holmstrom. You have a bunch of players who right now are basically either restricted or unrestricted free agents. Ruslan Ishkakov is one of those players. You got to figure out who you want to keep, and if you want to keep any of them, you have to free up even more cap space than the 11 million, because you won't have any additional room to do that. So again, you got to figure out what you're going to do. How do you free up essentially about $11 million in cap space? Well, you could try to trade. You're going to have to trade for, first of all, Marner. You could include either Ryan Pollock or Adam Pelech in the deal. And that would add, roughly $6 million in cap space. That would get it done from a cap perspective, pretty close to it. But the Leafs are going to want more in the trade. That goes without saying. So, the Leafs, I don't think they would want a J.G. Pageau. I don't necessarily think the Leafs would go for that. They're certainly going to want the Islanders' first-round pick in this year's draft. And, then you have to, again, figure out maybe another $5 million. You would need another player, a Pageau or a Palmieri or an Anders Lee, but none of those guys are necessarily attractive to other teams at this point. Pageau, overpaid, had a bad season, wrong side of 30. Palmieri had a good season, but again, wrong side of 30. Don't know how much longer he will be able to keep up that pace. And oh, by the way, he also has a modified no trade clause. Did I mention that both Pelech and Pollock have no trade clauses that they would have to waive? All of these options, all of these obstacles pile up. And then it also means that for your off season, you're not adding anybody else. Yeah, you could add a Mitch Marner, but then the puck-moving defenseman that you wanted, you got to break up another member of the core to free up cap space. And that's another guy with a no-trade clause or a modified no-trade clause. And it's also a guy that Lou Lamoriello is probably not willing to part with. So there are just a lot of obstacles. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible. And I think it is more realistic to say this. You can add a goal scorer, maybe not an elite sniper, but you could add a goal scorer to the list. But it's not going to be someone as dynamic and as well-known as Mitch Marner. And you would probably be able to pay them a little bit less and only have to trade away one player, and there'll be less obstacles to try to overcome. But at the end of the day, all the bad contracts and all of the no trade clauses and, signing guys to 7-year deals who are bottom six forwards or third pair defensemen, all of those things make the improvement of this team more difficult. And even keeping some of the guys you're going to want to keep, you may have to say goodbye to Ruslan Ishkakov if you make that move. You may also have difficulty signing Noah Dobson to an extension if you make that move, because Marner has 2 years left on his deal. These are just some of the obstacles that the Islanders would face to bring in Mitch Marner or some comparable sniper that might be available. It is not easy, but it also is not impossible. But man, Lou Lamoriello and the moves he's made and the way he's put this team together make it difficult. And look, let's face it, as everydayers know, we've said on the show, this team needs to get younger, faster, and more skilled. This team needs to be built, A, for Patrick Waugh's system, and B, to play in the NHL in 2024. And the way it's put together right now, it's not built for either. And it's going to be challenging, not impossible, but challenging to get them to that level. We have got more to get to on today's show. Some honors coming up for some Islanders alumni that is pretty exciting, and I'm glad to hear about that. We'll have that and our Islanders birthday of the day coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the minute they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. So, join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So, some good news for some Islanders alumni, and I was very happy to hear about this. 3 former Islanders will be inducted into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame. In the induction ceremony will take place on Saturday, July 13th at the Hilton Hotel in Troy, New York. And those 3 players are Denis Potvin, Eddie Westfall, and Ken Morrow. And I mean, a year ago, we saw Stan Fischler and John Tonelli inducted. I think for Potvin, it is long past time. Here's a guy who played for the Islanders from 1973 until 1988, had more than 1,000 career points, had his number retired all the way back in 1992. And really, to me, I think it's either he or Brian Trottier who was the greatest Islanders player of all time. Ed Westfall won 2 Stanley Cups with the Boston Bruins and then became the first captain of the Islanders after they acquired him in the expansion draft. Really helped the young team grow from a terrible expansion team into a playoff contender. He retired in 1979, just when the Islanders were about to win their 4 straight Stanley Cups, but he was still a member of the organization, working as a broadcaster alongside Jiggs McDonald for years. And he's been in the Islanders Hall of Fame since 2011. And then Ken Morrow, what more can you say about him? Miracle on Ice, 1980. U.S. hockey team at Lake Placid, beating the Russians, winning the gold, shocking the world. And then later that year, winning the first of 4 straight Stanley Cups. With the Islanders, his size and his defensive ability really helped, along with the acquisition of Butch Goring, to take the Islanders and put them over the top. And then, obviously, even though Morrow was never a goal scorer, boy, did he come up big in the clutch, and especially in the playoffs. His overtime winner in the deciding game of the 1984 series with the Rangers, one of the greatest moments in Islanders history, and to me, the greatest single game in the history of the Islanders-Rangers rivalry, which obviously I wrote about and spoke to Ken Morrow about in my book, Ice Wars. So these are three very deserving guys. And look, Potvin is still at a lot of Islander games. Morrow is still working for the organization. He is the team's director of pro scouting. And like I said, Eddie Westfall, after he retired, a longtime broadcaster. So you can get tickets to the event in July if you're interested, July 13th in Troy, New York at the Hilton Hotel. But really a very well-deserved honor for three really great all-time Islanders who not only had an impact on the ice, but off the ice as well. So congratulations to Ed Westfall, Ken Morrow, Denis Potvin for this award and this honor. And I am looking forward during the offseason to seeing the three of them inducted into the New York Hockey Hall of Fame. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And Thursday was the 33rd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Calvin DeHaan. DeHaan, first round pick of the Islanders, 12th overall in 2009. The Carp, Ontario native, 6'1", 192 pounds. Made his debut with the Isles in one game in 2011-2012. By 2013-2014, he was a regular, and he stayed with the Islanders through the 2017-2018 season, then played for Carolina, Chicago, Carolina again, and spent this past season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So far, 632 career NHL games, 24 goals, 141 points, 237 penalty minutes, add a goal and 5 points in 38 playoff games for Calvin DeHaan, and it's always good to see him do that. So DeHaan, we look back at one of his better games as an we take you back to Calvin DeHaan's best game, that one coming on February 21st, 2017 at the old Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. Islanders with Tomas Greiss in goal. The Red Wings had Peter Mrazek, and in this game, in the second period, with the score tied 1-1, Calvin DeHaan scores on the power play. Brock Nelson and Alan Quine with the assists. Islanders add a third period goal by John Tavares and beat the Red Wings by a score of 3-1 in the game. Calvin DeHaan scored a goal. It was the game winner. He had 4 shots on goal and played 21 minutes and 30 seconds. Calvin DeHaan, a solid middle pair defenseman, two-way defenseman, who is still active in the NHL now at the age of 34. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. We will be back on Monday as we continue. Monday we will start our player-by-player review of the Islanders season. We'll talk about the season that was, what the role of the player was, and what their future role with the team will be. So we'll go player by player throughout the roster over the course of the next few weeks. Make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.